Hi everybody, I'm Aryan Rasoulipour. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year in advance. Today we are diving into the fascinating world of neoclassical literature. This period was between late 17th century and early 19th century. It was the time the revival of ancient Greek and Roman ideals. Neoclassical writers and intellectuals emphasized on order and logic to produce decorum and harmony. Let me talk about this interesting subject of history of humankind. Firstly, I should mention this was a movement against Baroque movement that I produced a video about it in the last week. You can observe it after this video. The substantial elements of neoclassical literature includes imitation of classical models, emphasizing on reason and rationality, deductionism, and satirical works. And four things that led to neoclassical period was the writings of and texts of Winckelmann's, Enlightenment that spread throughout that time through Europe, and also thirdly, the discovering of Pompeii and Herculaneum cities from ancient Rome, and finally, pushback of Baroque movement. And about Winckelmann was a famous historian and archaeologist from Germany. He was father of the art history and historian art. His prominent and well-known work on the history of art that is called The History of The History of Ancient Art was his first book that systematically, in the first time throughout the history, characterized art by style and period. Winckelmann's text raised the Enlightenment in the mid-18th century and late 18th century and has a good impact on some realms and subjects like philosophy, literature, painting, and sculpture. Okay, about Pompeii. Pompeii was a city which is located close to nowadays Naples city in Italy. Pompeii was an ancient Roman city that was buried on the ashes of a volcanic activity and eruption which is occurred in the year 79 AD, after birth of Jesus Christ 70 years later. And in that period, Pompeii and its neighborhood cities, Herculaneum and Stobalia, buried on the ash and lost and forgot for 1,500 years throughout the history. They are eliminated totally, and they are accidentally in 1599 discovered by an archaeologist which was from Italy also, that was called, his name was Fontana, that accidentally suddenly discovered the Pompeii and Herculaneum, and these cities opened new windows throughout the Roman culture, architecture, and history to that modern period. And everything that we have as a neoclassical architecture and literature has rooted and has a legacy from his discovery of Herculaneum and Pompeii cities. And one thing I should mention here, in these cities, time is totally frozen because of ashes of volcanic activities. And in this period, we call Enlightenment is spread throughout Europe, as mentioned before. In that period, the skeptical authority and individualism globalized throughout the Europe, and it spread rather than traditional authority. Because of that, we call neoclassical period as Age of Reason. The key elements of that period was reason and rationality, secularism, individualism, progress in everything and scientific fields, liberty and freedom, equality and justice. This period was the time of some well-known and prominent philosophers in the history of philosophy like Immanuel Kant, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and also finally the John Locke. Their ideas, these three philosophers that I mentioned some seconds ago, leads to modern democracy and modern European democracy and glorious revolution in England, American Revolution that's due to and leads to independence of United States of America, and finally French Revolution that overthrown the French monarchies of Louis XVI and established Republican and state in France. And from the literary genres that spirit and was common were common in this period, we can consider poetry, novels and prose, essays, dramas, and satirical works. And these satirical works emphasized to criticizing society and human folly in that period. Poetry in that period was focused on heroic couplets and formal verses. And also essay became, as I mentioned before, a significant genre in that period, with some works like Samuel Johnson and so on. And novel was very growing in that period, novel writing, and one of the famous novel and prose works in that period was from Daniel Defoe, by Robinson Crusoe. And most important and prominent and well-known poets from that period, we can consider the Alexander Pope, Samuel Johnson, Joseph Addison, Jonathan Swift, and John Dryden. The Age of Reason, or neoclassical period, or even Enlightenment period, was the time that two things both spread and become common among people and scientific studies and scientists. One of them is intellectual movement, and secondly, scientific approach to everything, that instead replaced by the Galileo Galilei, Newton, and some other scientists that hidden and eliminated gradually the traditional manners and path to the science that belongs to before ages and previous ages, like Middle Ages and even Dark Ages. It was also the time of rising the middle class in the atmosphere of society, and time of revolutions and fast political change throughout some countries in Europe and American colonies in United States of America that colonized by British people. That's it. Thank you for attending on my YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the icon bell to every time I update my videos, you will receive its notification. See you later. Until the next time, goodbye, good luck, farewell.